This episode is brought to you by Mortgage Workflow Partners and the Mastering Encompass series, both for users as well as administrators. You can find out all the information about it over at masterengencompass.com. Also, if you'd like to check out what we're doing on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel using the @MasteringEncompass handle. And make sure you stay up to date on all the information, not just with podcasts, but also video content that we bring to you as often as possible. Now let's get on to the episode. Howdy, Larry Bailey, Mortgage Workflow Partners. It is October 19th, 1 p.m. Eastern. Thanks everybody to those that are coming here live through Mortgage.community. Welcome. Welcome to another event here. We are doing best practices of personas in Encompass. Brian's first. Brian, you deserve a round of applause. For those that are listening to podcasts, thank you very much for always getting our podcast plays up. I don't know why that's important to me, but apparently it just helps me understand that we are trying to make a difference. And that's the reason why we do these meetings. These are community-based meetings. It is really meant for you to ask questions, get insight, give a chance to talk something out, share your screen if you're comfortable, and talk through a problem as a community. And what I try to do is present topics for discussion, things that I see that are happening. Doesn't necessarily mean it's important for you. So if I'm not talking about stuff that is important for you, tell me what you want to talk about, and let's get it done. So while I'm going on here about what we're doing, the NBA just wrapped up in Philadelphia. I was there yesterday. I'm going to talk a little bit about that if we have time. But does anybody have any challenges, any problems? I know we meet twice a week, so maybe you've already asked your questions last meeting, but I always start off with that. So if you don't have any questions or don't have any problems that you want to talk about, that's A-okay. But if you do, go ahead and throw them in chat. And Angie wants to talk about UCD. Sure. Angie, do you want to talk it through or do you want to type? You let me know. Rob says, oh, I have problems. While Angie's typing up the thing here, I do want to express just real quick, the MBA was like other conferences where it was great to meet people and build on relationships, people that you know. It's great to see people. It's great to build relationships. Maybe there was something new that you saw, but I did do a big post yesterday on how many times are you coming away from a big conference with something that you're truly going to do? And the answer is probably rarely. That's the reality. And, as we get into, I guess we're winding down conference season, but next year when we get into conference season and you're asking yourself, if you're the check writer, or you're asking the person who's a check writer to say, hey, I'd love to go to this event. This is what I'm going to bring back to bring value. That's really what I would explain to you. And yes, Sharon, you should put a list of your issues up in the community. And number one, it lets everybody know that it's not just them. Somebody else like you has questions or problems. But where I was headed with the MBA thing was, I went to the MBA. We did the wrap-up show, and we had good conversations. But the biggest problems that I'm seeing are that companies are really trying to put on a brave face, but in the back office, things are getting really scary. And so if you are really not sure as a company how to navigate through what's going to be a very tough winter, it's going to be a very tough 2024. I've said this before, I've made a lot of money and I've made very little money. I've even lost money in some years as a business owner. And the people that you work for, or the people that work for you, if you're an owner, you've got to really talk about how you're planning, how you're going through your, like we talked about on Tuesday, how you're doing accounting of your own system. So expanding your products, expanding your reach, innovating things are all very, very important. So let's get back here. And for anybody listening to this replay, if we do cut off here, which we should be cutting off right about now, please get over to Mortgage.community and watch the whole replay. We're going to talk about Angie's stuff with regards to UCD, Robert's stuff with regards to construction lending, and then I'm going to talk about personas. So Angie says, we have one issue that seems to be fixed with the 23.1, but now it's rearing its ugly head again. The field 3542 regarding loan discount points, we're getting an error that something needs to be in the field. ICE hasn't been helpful in kind of resolving it. 3542. Oh, 3542 is the error message. And this is simply when you're delivering to UCD, right, Angie? Yeah. I have no idea. So does anybody else, if anybody else has had this error with 3542, obviously I could Google like the best of them, but I would typically go to Fannie's codes. What does Fannie say when you call Fannie? What do they say when you say, hey, I got a 3542? What do they say? Because that's typically when you're dealing with anywhere where you're transmitting data and that endpoint gives you an error back. I want to call the company managing that endpoint. Because you gotta find out what's going on. So Robert asks, I'd like to know what others are doing about construction lending. No, I Angie, call them anytime. Listen, anytime that if you're delivering to Fannie or Freddie and you're getting an error from UCD, you've got to, my opinion, if it were me, I would call Fannie and I'd say, hey, because their tech support team is really good. I would ask them, and then if they're like, I don't know. They got to know, because you're getting this error back from an API call. So anyways, to do that, Robert said, is it related to qm.x39, x369 field? I don't know. Rob, have you had the error before? Is that kind of your thought on that? A little while ago. All right, that's cool. Maybe check out that field, qm.x369, Angie. Robert searched through his email. Maybe that's helpful. I'll tell you what, I work with First Signature Lending. They are a beast on construction lending and one-time close. So Rob, what do you want to know? I can tell you a lot of stuff. So let me know about that. Check the notes, Angie. Looks like Rob says there's an update in August 2023, GSE 23.2 update. Maybe that's helpful for you. So Rob, you let me know about that. Jolene says we are currently doing two-step construction, but currently setting up C2P. Cool. Jolene, if you ever have any questions, let the community know, and we'll talk about it publicly. So while this is going on, let me ask everybody a question. If you go into your Encompass right now, and you go into settings right now, and you go to system administration, all users, and you sort it by persona, how many, percentage-wise, how many of your users have more than one persona? And if the answer, because it's going to happen, there's going to be some times that you're going to have more than one persona. Typically, it's for administrator or super admins because they're doing something else and you want to see their name in the role list view. Chris says none. Dude, that's awesome. Zero, Jolene says zero. That's awesome. Several less than 5%, 100%. John says 100% have more than one persona. Yeah, okay. So I was just working with, we're helping a new client and they're running into a problem because of persona access rules. And we're trying to deal with that. And so one of the things that typically happens when you have a good number of operational people that have more than one persona, Encompass doesn't really understand how to apply persona access to loans or persona access to fields. It can also get confusing unless you call the specific persona out in a unique way in input form code, things like that. And especially if you use plugins, like I know of a company like Kenzie May's input form control, I think that's what they call it still. If you've got multiple personas, that thing's a hot mess. We did a time study analysis right now for a client because I told them to please unwind it because of their persona. It's not because of the plugin necessarily, but it is because the client's got multiple personas all over the place. It's going to save, it saves one user about 30 minutes a week just in opening files. And so that's just one example. Again, I don't think it's the product. I think it's the situation, but the product just the situation amplifies the product slowing things down. And that's going to happen across business rules natively. It's going to happen across all kinds of things. So what do we do about it, right? What's the best practice? And it looks like, you've got Brian, no. Who said 0? Oh, none. We're strict about that. Chris, can you come on? Can you come on stage and I can talk to you, or you got a mic? I'd love to talk to you more about your strict policy with regards to one. It could be also Rob for you or Jolene for you. And the reason why I'm asking is because I could talk to you all day about what I see, but I'm not running a mortgage company myself to do this. So I want to ask you your opinion on how practical it is, because a persona is a list of job functions. It's all it is. And what ends up happening a lot of times, because of naming convention, companies get locked into this idea that, well, it's a loan officer, or it's a loan officer assistant, or it's an underwriter, or an underwriter level 2, or a closer, or a senior closer. And you end up creating all of these extraneous personas that all have the same job function. Oh yeah, and Angie's situation is real right now. Companies are merging. And so when you merge, you have to bring on all these workflows. Sometimes you're keeping your own, sometimes you're taking theirs. And so this idea of job function is really important. And so I was going to share my test environment and kind of talk through the concept of, let's see, entire screen, concept of personas, because we all have them, right? We all use Encompass. And when I go through admin training, we got through this topic last week in our 23.3 admin mastering Encompass as an admin course. And the idea of personas, we went through each tab, and what I wanted to find out from each of you, again, as this is a group conversation, is how often are you going through with all the new updates and making sure that each of the people in your workflow are doing the job function that's described in in each of these tabs. So forms and tools is fairly easy because it's just kind of like, do they have access to the form? Do they have access to the tool? Is that part of their job function? But where it gets a little bit dicey is, especially in the E folder, what are they allowed to do, generally speaking, with every document? And then what do you do about unprotected or protected documents? So, Chris, for you, I'm curious, do you guys use a protected doc workflow? And actually, this can go, Rob, to you as well, and Jolene, for you as well. Do you guys use protected doc workflows in your business? And does that interfere with your ability to assign just one persona per user account? Because sometimes you'll get situations where you've got a processor, but they're like juniors. We don't, you don't, and you've not been able to figure that out. So, yeah, so that's good that you don't use it. And I'll explain in 1 second here, what that is. I want to take Candace's question first. So Candace's question is, do you combine permissions across the multiple personas and create one persona? I don't get crazy with multiple personas, but we do have a few people with up to 3, including myself, so that I can see pipeline views for that persona. So Candace, for you, you're not alone, first of all. It is common for admins and super admins to take on a persona of a user to kind of see what's going on, just to kind of stay in touch. So because you're a super or an administrator, business rules don't apply to you anyway. So it's not that you got to worry about business rules, but I would be concerned about plugins that are written in a way to affect a persona action. And that's my only call out for you, Candace, is to worry about plugins. But to answer your question, yeah, I go through and so again, under system administration settings reports, you can come down in here and you can build a persona-based report and pick, let's say you're doing loan opener and processor, right? You're combining those two, and you want to select all, just call it combo, create the report. And so one huge project that's still ongoing after 10 months is to try to unwind multiple personas for a particular project that, like I said, is still going on. I actually had to have coincidentally, the admin there was a programmer, and he actually built a plugin, not a plugin, but yeah, actually, there's a plugin. He built a plugin that actually does kind of this, but will actually take the information and put it into a searchable format. So we basically could get to the greatest common denominator between multiple personas to build like a new closer or a new processor. So basically, once you do this, you can download the report. And if you guys have never done this, sounds like some of you have, you can download the report and view it. And basically what you're looking for is the common, you're looking for the nose, right? So across all these filters, if there's anything that's distinguished between them or different between them, you could do conditional formatting to look for the differences between the yeses and the nos. But effectively, if they're all the same, guys, it's the same persona. So effectively, I just did a quick glance. I'm assuming they're all the same. There is no reason to have loan opener in this environment. It's the same persona as processor. So, in my test environment, if you have both personas, you're wasting resources. And what that leads to potentially is a conflict in the business roles. So when you get down to persona access to fields, if I'm giving the same people two different personas, but I give two different outcomes, one for persona A, one for persona B, Encompass is going to give you an unexpected response. It might work some days, other days it might not. It just depends on how Encompass sees the persona table at that user level. So that's part of the challenge of best practices for personas. A true best practice, I don't know if anybody does this. Brian, Rob, you guys say you run these reports. How often do you give the report to your management team to say, hey, is this job function still appropriate for this persona? Because if you're not doing that actively, then you're also not sure if the job function still lines up with the persona. They're posted in Share Drive. So Rob's like, hey, listen, we don't even give it for the ops management to review. Brian says they're posted in Share Drive. So Brian, Rob, thanks for that response. So Brian, for you, if they're posted, do you actually does that mean that they give you a documented, hey, we reviewed this and there's no changes, or they'll let you know if there's any changes kind of a thing? And then Rob, for you, I don't know if it's just like a haha thing, but does that mean you're actually not going down and getting their eyes on it so that they know what they have? You're still small enough? Okay. That's cool. And so why am I like kind of, you do it all? All right. So I'm okay with the idea of, if you're a smaller company, and smaller company could be less than 10 people. And if you're involved as an admin in every single part of your workflow, phenomenal. Part of this also is giving agency to people to make decisions on what they should be responsible for. And that's where I kind of say, even if I know what's going on, I still want the ops, I still want the person responsible for that decision to make sure that they're involved in it, that it's not just all me. I want to delegate. And, I think that's an important part of my presentation. Part of the sexiness of being a third party is I can make recommendations all day long, but ultimately it's always the client's decision. I can be emphatic about how important it is to make this decision, but ultimately I can't make them do it. I can't make you do it. I can only suggest strongly. So, hopefully there's some value in there for you. Sharon says, ops does not even know about this report, and if it's up to me, they never will. So I would say you'd want to at least meet with your compliance team. So again, I'm all about delegation. If there's a problem, Sharon, if something happens, like, I don't know, the wrong LE goes out to a borrower and that ends up with some kind of serious cost problem for the company, for your bank because of cures, they're going to want to know, like, why was this able to happen? And I would love to say it's not my fault. I'd love to say, or your fault. I'd love to say, listen, I was told that loan officers were allowed to do this. If that's wrong, someone should have told me, and I'll fix it right now, but that's the reason why it wasn't fixed before. And gang, this is really what I'm talking about. This is not really about cover your ass or CYA. This is really about just delegating the responsibility of the decision. And when it comes to personas, it's a very easy thing to do to your ops team or to your management team. Candace says, when I started here in 2017, basically they had a few personas, but nothing was really locked down or distinguished. That's something I began to work on in 2018, and I've been meaning to revisit this area and clean it up some. I didn't realize the multiple personas affected loan open. It can. Yeah, if you've got technology governing what happens in the loan file on open based upon the persona, if you've got no reliable way for that software to plow through the entire list of personas assigned reliably to find something that it contains, yeah, it can be a problem. So Candace continued to say, our IT security pulls those security reports monthly, and I have to go through and describe what changed. That's a great segue, Candace. I just talked with somebody about this right before this call, and they asked me, what is everybody else doing to document Encompass changes? So if you are making changes to personas, to Candace's point in the chat here, how are you documenting what you're changing? In their example, they use Zendesk. I use Zoho Desk. In the past, I've used Smartsheet, but basically everything, yeah, Smartsheet, Angie, yeah, I'm with you. Kenzie May's change management tool, Happy Fox, which is, again, all these things are good. Internal Jira change requests, that's great. Candace, for you, you're managing the work being done. I think that's great, but you can't make a request for work to be done through that. That's simply documenting. So if somebody wants something requested, how are you documenting who made the request and if they were satisfied with the request outcome? I'm guessing email or a phone call or a tap on the shoulder kind of a thing, or a Teams message, all that stuff, right? So again, everybody's different, but from an auditing perspective, because I think you said you got IT security thing, rather than my recommendation, maybe for you, Candace, and others, Jira requests are good. The example I was pointing out earlier that came right before this call started, which was they use Zen. That Zen desk started because of an IT thing. And my suggestion to the client was use it for everything, so that if somebody walks up to me and is like, hey, dude, this thing's got to get fixed. And I'm like, awesome, let's go create a ticket first so I can create a Zen number, so I can put the Zen number in the commented code or in the commented input form or in the notes section of the business rule. And the reason why I do that is so I don't have to type my ass off in Encompass. I can just put a little breadcrumb in there for what it's referencing and then go back to the reference resource for everything else. That's really important for that. So Rob says, yeah, note section of Israel is great. I know. I wish it was something you could actually see, kind of a thing. And that's a tease for what I'm going to show you before we end the meeting. I'm super pumped about a new field analyzer that I'm working with, Awesome Technologies. If you haven't heard me say this before, ATI and Mortgage Workflow Partners are collaborating a lot more these days, and I'm helping bring technology forward and innovate. So Angie says change management is huge right now. We are under the CFPB rules. See why? Exactly. So hey, let me show you something real quick, because I think you guys are going to like this. So I'm going to go over into this guy right here. Web-based field analyzer. I'm going to just punch in field 4000, search. And so what's super nice about this, if you haven't noticed already, is you can see everything that's going on. You've got it if it's an RDB, that kind of a thing. Also, if it's virtual, if it's locked down, all that stuff, if it's read-only, what the length is, etc. What's really important to me, and this is what we've been working on nonstop, is that you've got full access to everything. So in milestone completion business rules, you can actually see what breaks down into it. So you can see all the code, if there's tasks and what those priorities are. Also required field down in here. So that's super important. It also breaks down into, you can create a nice printout. So for your security people, you can actually give an entire presentation of everything that's in Encompass in terms of rules, if you need to, if that's part of your requirement, rather than export them out. Plus, it's easy to copy and paste code versus doing anything else. What's cool here also is DDM rules. So if you're a DDM shop, you've got all your DDM stuff. Would that also work with Mace Innovations workflow? Tell me more about your question, Rob. I don't know what that question means. So DDM breaks down on here reliably. You've also got, if there's any custom fields, pipeline views, reports, sync templates, loan program templates, basically all your templates. All your duplication, that's where it appears here. What's super cool is you've got custom print forms. So if the field appears in custom print forms, you've got that. We're looking at Field Analyzer from Awesome Technologies. Basically, it kicks the ass out of lender toolkits. Visual Analyzer kicks the ass out of Kenzie May's system analytics utility. And this is $200 per month. That's the cost. Yeah, I know who Mace is. Has rules above standard biz rule. Yeah, I would expect it would. I haven't tested that, Rob, but I will. I actually have his stuff installed in my production environment. I could run it, but yeah, because it's in the rule index, I would expect it to pick it up. So we're looking at custom print forms. We're also looking at down here. We're looking at the bottom. It'll go through and do input forms. So, here's a big POS dashboard. So we know on the big POS dashboard input form, there it is. And what's really cool is it does your control IDs. So you know exactly where the code is in the control ID. Yeah. Yahweh, Rob. Yahweh. It's, again, for anybody who's really wanted to see what's going on, yeah. So more information. We're going to do a big public announcement. You guys are literally the first in the public to see this, but I thought it would be a great time to make it worth your while. And if you've been struggling, if you can't afford Visual Analyzer and you don't have Kenzie May and you can't even afford that thing because it's super expensive, I built this out to be $200 a month. Come on, come off whenever you want, and deliver that out. So that's what we're looking at, Candace. I keep forgetting that I have something from Lender Toolkit that has an analyzer. Yeah, you have Visual Analyzer. You've got to go into the file, into Encompass, open up a file, but you don't get much of anything here, and you certainly don't get the detail that's broken out. Nobody does this. This is innovative. Nobody else is doing this. So rule of thumb, as best you can, one persona per user. Make sure that you go through and you are running your settings reports. As we just showed, make sure that you're working with your team to delegate the responsibility to others to make sure that these settings are accurate. Even if you think you know what they are, and even if you do know what they are, get somebody else to sign off on the damn things, because that's their job too, especially if they're in a compliance role. Yeah. That's no. It's custom input forms. So that's down here at the bottom, Chris. So that's here. That's all custom input form, all down here. Yeah, it's really super cool. I'm telling you, it's the reason why I love ATI is because their developers are second to none. But nobody, it's not like they're out there being showboats. They're not doing race cars, or they're not doing big shows and big conventions and big things. So That's why we're partnering together. I want to really promote the hell out of what ATI has built for commissions, for business intelligence, for plugins, for automation, for field analyzer through Encompass, and this also works in other platforms. Rob, you be well. Everybody, listen. It's 30 minutes. Please do something about your personas. I guarantee you will thank yourself, or your future self will thank you if you really start to narrow that down on one persona per user and get that responsibility delegated to somebody else. That's my best practice for you. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Always hit me up with any questions. Sharon, if you have any other questions, like you said, please come up and bring it up on the community. All right. You guys be well. Look for the big announcement. And if we can help out, happy Halloween, Chris. If you are interested in more information on that field analyzer, please let me know. All right, gang. We'll see you. Bye-bye.